0, 1. Let's get started.
Like that. And we got our second target right there. And now it's just a matter of are we going to get our last target? So there is hello and welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. In today's episode, I'll be sharing with you all my exact S&P 500 game plan for tomorrow's market session on what will be October the 14th, okay? So stay with me to the very end so you can see a trade review. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started, okay? And get my big face out of the way. And of course, we're going to start off with the cash market, get us up to date on what's exactly going on there, okay? Now, where we last left off, we talked about this range and the formation of happening, and then we had a couple variations. Now, what ended the day on Friday was a relatively big-ass move to the downside. So, in essence, we were expecting a rotation to go back down to the low, okay? So, I had the first general idea for today's video being the fact that the theme is a rotation back down. So, in essence, the first and most prominent scenario would be us again to rotate all the way back down to the low. Doesn't seem likely, but then again, nothing does, right? This is the prominent and I would say A+ variation that we're looking for in tomorrow's session. Now, other than that, if I kind of scoot this off to the side, we would be looking at things more than likely in terms of a continuation pattern going higher. But for that to occur, we first have to go higher. So we would assume that this pullback to the moving average is but the first movement. And now we can pull back again and go up even a little bit higher. Now, from this perspective, things get a little bit weird just because even though we are now shifting the momentum to bullishness, we still will have to go through some sort of momentary correction, okay? That corrective move should bring us back down to some of these levels of support in here before we look for a continuation bounce going back up to the high, okay? So just be aware if we do make a substantially higher high, that brings us into right around that neighborhood of, let's just say 667.5, then we can try to change our game plan, okay? Buying the dips are most appropriate. If you can find a valid entry to short this thing, which we will be on the lookout for in tomorrow's morning's live stream, then that will be possible as well. But just be aware that at that potential point, there are other variations and morphs that can happen that will lead this variation to not happening exactly like this, which is why it's more advantageous for you to look to buy than it would be trying to look for you to sell if we make that bigger move going up first, okay? So just be aware that these are kind of the two big players in tomorrow's market. Now, there is one more variation that you do need to be aware of, and I think this one is something to be definitely keeping your eye on the radar for. So the last variation, obviously we have a bullish and bearish. There's always a chance for a neutral scenario, okay? Now that neutral, scenario would dictate the fact that this is going to be a range. So this is going to be a range. We can now find the deviations both above and below that will help illustrate the levels of support and resistance, okay? So this will pretty much dictate support underneath, and then now we can extrapolate the deviation above, which is arguably going to say, let's just say that there, we'll say that that is levels of resistance, okay? So in this situation, just be aware that a range obviously rotates, okay? Now, a rotation is clear by its definition from highs to lows, highs to lows, highs to lows, okay? Now, in this scenario, we are bullish overall. Let me get my face a little bit out of the way here. We are bullish overall, okay? Oops. Let me scoot this up. We're bullish overall, so we are looking to more appropriately look to buy. There, get it together, Brendan. There we go. Buy off of these lows, okay? So just be aware every time we dip down, if this is going to be a range, it's a buying opportunity, okay? So in that situation and with that mind frame at hand, we should be looking for one to two things, okay? Obviously, a continuation barcode. If we get some sort of variation where we pull back, we go up, retest this high, and then we reject, okay? Then we'll look for a rotation coming back down. Once we get back down to this low, however, like it maneuvers itself lower, we're far more likely now to look for buying opportunities to go back up to this high. Because again, this is a range, all right? Now bear with me. This level here is more appropriate to buy. Oops, that's a big level. This level here is more appropriate to buy to go back up. Then one would assume this level here, okay? It'll all be in hindsight and pretty obvious, but just know that this is like a 60%, 50% trade. This one is like an 80 to 90% trade. All right, same goes for the upside, okay? This right here, it's like a 50, 60% trade. You don't necessarily want to do it. It's plausible if you see the right entry point, But again, the A plus setups are going to be in this scenario because of the bullish momentum in a range down here on the secondary low. Okay. So that's kind of what I'm looking at for tomorrow, at least on the cash market, everyone. Hopefully you understood my mind frame and concepts. But just know that if you're trading later into 1220, Fed Chair Powell is speaking, so chances are things will get kind of crazy around then, but more than likely we'll be done trading for our particular session, okay? So just know that for tomorrow's news events, it's really just Fed Chair Powell speaking at 1220. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let's finish things up by taking a look at the futures chart here, okay? Now, we're taking a look at the ES on the futures chart, and you can see the similarities from that and the cash market. Now, the same thing kind of presides, except in this situation, I think it's a lot easier to see the fact that we may have that range potentially here, okay? So first thing up for me is that range overall, and I can kind of see it right here, okay? Now that's going to be the range. Then we can easily now get the deviations above and below. So in this situation, we can safely assume that that's obviously going to be supports, and we can assume that this is going to be resistance, okay? Now for the, let me get this adjusted here a bit. Let me adjust this a bit. So what we are truthfully expecting for right now, okay, is the fact that we're looking for a rotation now to come back down. We've already hit this prior high, which is very much so a good thing. That does symbolize to me a range possibility, and that basically means that once we get back down to this low, we can look for immediate buying opportunities, okay? So once we get back down to this low, we can look for a buying opportunity to essentially go back up and rotate back to the high. Now, what we need to be aware of is the fact that the full rotation above in this situation, something like so, illustrated by this soon-to-be medium violent red, we can assume is going to be the distance swung underneath, okay? So start looking for buying opportunities once we get either to this prior low down here, which is going to be arguably right there, or at the very least, we need to start looking at it definitely once we get to the full rotation of that swing, which will be right there. So the sweet spot for tomorrow in terms of buying opportunities looks like it's going to be between 66.52.5 and 66.41.25, okay? So keep that as a pretty decent area for buying opportunities if the market again wants to barcode and kind of just venture off to the right side. Now, other than that, like we mentioned before, in this scenario, because it's a pretty clean and clear range, I think it's pretty much evident that if we do break out, we'd want to see some sort of variation like so, in which we push out pretty cleanly above. Now, that would illustrate to me probably a 1, 2, 3 breakout, so we can look for a pullback into support and then continue to go higher. And the effect that you are looking for a bullish move going upwards tomorrow, this is probably the best variation to start with, okay? And again, in this situation, you're not looking to buy the breakout, you're actually looking to buy the pullback, which would be somewhere closer to this. And again, look for the proper entry as we rotate back to the upside, okay? So that's pretty much what I'm looking for tomorrow. And again, if at any point, just like this bull case scenario, if we break through this low substantially and give us some signs of momentum shift, then we can now look to sell and rotate back down as well, okay? So definitely stay nimble for tomorrow. But as far as the cash market is concerned, it looks a little bit more ominous that we are in a range, okay? And if we're going to be in a range, we need to primarily treat this blue case scenario here on the chart right now as the primary path until proven otherwise, okay? So again, everyone, hopefully this video has helped you out in looking at the new dynamics of trading the SPY, S&P 500 cash, and our futures market. Now, all I do is trade the futures market for myself personally. That's why in the morning you will see a live stream from me in which we'll be trading here right on this screen on the futures chart, okay? So again, if you want to see me trade live, doing the exact things that we talked about here today, then come on back at 9:30 tomorrow morning so you can see exactly that, all right? So again, everyone, thank you for giving me some of your time. Feel free to like, subscribe, share with anybody else so you don't miss future uploads. And I will see you all on the next candle.
I know it's hard to trust so-called gurus. That's why I stream live every morning at 9:30 a.m. Eastern, Monday through Friday, trading the exact same setups we just talked about in this video. The stream usually runs until lunch, but just so you know, it's delayed and muted. If you end up liking what you see, there's way more waiting down below. You'll find links to my Discord and Patreon, where you can join the real-time live chat, remove the buffer, and unlock extra perks. including learning the entire system for yourself. That way, you'll never have to regret missing trades like this again.
All right, everyone. So this is going to be the trade of the week, or the trade that I will show you for the week, and it happened today on October the 6th, okay? So let me get my big face out of the way so you can see the chart here. All right, so what we have here overall was kind of a unique situation because we were expecting a whole bunch of different things, and ultimately what we ended up getting was a potential range rotation as well as just a continuation off of the bigger move, okay? So that being said, the low of this was kind of a unique entry, okay? This is a Gore pattern to the T. And with this, you can see it's more of a cascading, rising, higher high, and which gives us a nice entry off the base of this channel, okay? Now, that being said, the entry was a bit robust and big, leaving me to not be able to enter in ideally above the candle. So I ended up having to actually place my entry underneath based on the correct entry level, okay? That's what you're basically seeing right now. So with that being said, as soon as market action pulled back some, I do believe we entered in right here, yes. So with us entering in right here, now we're going to use our volatility-based algo that you will get as a tier 3 member. And this will basically allow you to understand where to put your stop loss based on the day's volatility. So with that being said, as I adjust this, I'm going to fast forward just a bit so this doesn't take all day. But as you can see, we have our stop loss now there at the lows, which is equal to our stop loss at the highs coincidentally. And then we use other levels objectively above to get our second and third targets, okay? As you can see here, after we did pull back and kind of danced around a bit, we ultimately ended up, if I continue to fast forward this, you can see in just a second, we did get our first target, and we did get our second target right here. Oh, excuse me, right in a second. We did move our stop loss up because we got our first target. Sorry about that. Then we got our second target right there. And now it's just a matter of are we going to get our last target? So there is a rhyme and reason to how we kind of trail, just so you know. But in this instance, as you can see, as we steady started to creep up dramatically closer to our target, we essentially maintained our stop loss closer as well. So as it continued to push up, we continue to push up as well. There is a trade secret for this, so don't fret. When you do become a member, you'll learn this. But in general, it just allows us to stay in as best we can, okay? So as you can see, our target was up there. We adjusted accordingly, and we did end up getting stopped out before the target high, although I did adjust the target high just a bit. So we ended up getting pretty much all the move, okay? So with that being said, everyone, this was the trade of the week that you'll be seeing pretty much in all the videos for today or for this week. And if you don't want to miss opportunities just like this, then simply look down below for the description so you can get access to the Discord/Patreon, okay? Thanks for watching. See you on the next candle.